Our goal here is simple. We are here to improve the day-to-day lives of the average citizen. That's a core promise, and we are keeping it. Together, we will unleash the creativity of the private sector to provide citizen services in a way that has never happened before.
And that, my friends, is what Jared Kushner sounds like. The interwebs were buzzing when audio of Donald Trump's son-in-law finally surfaced. For someone with such a big White House portfolio, including Middle East peace, Jared isn't known to say very much. But with the Trump-Russia scandals moving beyond campaign aides and coming very close to home, Kushner, his wife Ivanka, and her brother Donald Trump Jr. may soon be spending lots of time talking to their lawyers. And joining me now is Tamara Holder, equal rights attorney and advocate, David Korn of Mother Jones, David K. Johnston of DCReport.org. Thank you guys for being here. Tamara, I'm going to start with you. Jared has beefed up his legal team, per the New York Times, that Representatives Jared Kushner quietly contacted high-powered criminal lawyers about potentially representing him in the wide-ranging investigation into Russia's influence in the 2016 election, the Times reports. And although his current lawyer, Jamie Gorelick, is a well-known lawyer who's often handled complex cases involving government investigations, she's not a trial lawyer. What does that signal to you? It signals to me that he's in trouble, or he should be thinking that he's going to be in trouble. Isn't it interesting that on his security clearance form, where he had 7 years of history, he forgot his most recent contacts. Seven years. I understand if he met with the Russians, back in 2010, but we're talking about a Russian meeting with a spy, a Russian meeting with a Russian ambassador, and he did this and a banker, and he did this in December and January and forgot to just fill those out on his forms. Isn't that just interesting? And this is a man, by the way, who's now running our Middle East agreements, right? And he's going to and he can't even remember what's on his form. Yeah, and it's interesting, David Korn, that Elijah Cummings, the Congressman Elijah Cummings, has sent a letter, and this was actually interesting. It was signed by all of the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee. And I believe they might have gotten some Republican signatories, which is what makes it unusual. And the letter says, we have serious concerns about whether the White House is properly safeguarding classified information. It's unclear why Mr. Kushner continues to have access to classified information while these allegations are being investigated. What does it mean that you now have members of Congress, and I believe even some Republicans, asking, why does this guy have a security clearance still?
Well, I mean, you got to be fair. These were secret meetings for the Russians. Why would he tell the FBI about them? I mean, to me, there is no good explanation that's come up, and this is really what's most troubling, besides the fact that he broke the rules and nobody else in this situation would be granted a clearance, security clearance. But what's troubling is trying to figure out what he was doing, meeting with the head of a Russian bank tied to the, FSB, the Russian intelligence service, and more importantly, the story that came out saying that he was looking to set up a secret channel of communications between, with Putin's regime, by which, or through which, he would use the telecommunications equipment at the at Moscow's embassy here in Washington. I mean, would he just sort of like go in with a baseball cap and a hoodie? I mean, there are 20 FBI cameras outside that building every day. We still have no idea what he was trying to do and why he was trying to do that. So I know it's very easy, and I'm not dismissing this, for the Democrats to ask for this information about his security clearance, which they should get, which the White House won't give them. But they need to, but the Russian investigators on the Hill, maybe the special counsel, need to dig deeper into what he was up to in the big picture. Yeah, and there are some stories surfacing that the other person who was in at least some of those meetings, Michael Flynn, may already be cooperating with the FBI. So a lot of this could be coming out. David K. Johnston, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, has also sent in a letter. They've requested copies of the applications for the certificates of divestiture submitted to the White House Office of Government Ethics on behalf of Jared Kushner, Ivanka Trump, and their children. Crew also requesting a copy of Mr. Kushner's public financial disclosure report that was submitted in support of his application for certificates of divestiture. So you do have, and by the way, Tamara's going to tell us who the Republicans are, who are it's Chuck Grassley and Lindsey Graham. So I want to make sure we get that out too. But David K. Johnston, what does it mean now that you're starting to see some digging into the forms that Jared Kushner also turned in to divest of his companies?
Well, the Trump and Kushner families are both going to have serious problems about their finances and their connections. And I've consistently said that Donald's biggest concerns have to be the money, the sources of money and the obligations and money laundering more than the Russian connections. And remember, Jared Kushner got his family to put all their eggs in one basket, 666 Fifth Avenue, a building that if you run the numbers on the math cannot be paying for itself. So he's under significant financial pressure. When do we know that people end up making bad judgments that get them into serious trouble, especially when they have access to national security secrets? Well, often when they're in financial difficulty, and they have not been candid.
Yeah, and I want to stay with you just for, go on, David Corn.
I was saying that's what gets to one possible thing that might have been going on with this secret meeting with Russian bankers. If they're talking about getting rid of lifting sanctions on Russian banks, maybe, just maybe, this is speculation, that might help the Kushner real estate business.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to
exactly.
Yeah, I want to go to Jared Kushner's wife and her and his brother-in-law, Donald Jr., and go back to David K. Johnson for just a minute. Bayrock partnership. There was another big, there was just blockbuster story after blockbuster story again this week. Bloomberg, a terrific piece by Tim O'Brien that talks about the partnership between the future president back before and his two eldest children, Donald Jr. and Ivanka, on a series of real estate deals between 2002 and 2011, the most prominent being the troubled Trump Soho Hotel and Condominium in Manhattan. Now, Bayrock, during the years, this is a little bit more on that, during the years that Bayrock and Trump did deals together, the company was also a bridge between murky European funding and number of projects in the U.S. to which the president once lent his name in exchange for handsome fees. And Trump testified under oath in 2007 in a deposition that Bayrock brought Russian investors to Trump Tower, to Trump's office, to discuss deals with Moscow, saying it's ridiculous that I wouldn't be investing in Russia. Russia's one of the hottest places in the world. Felix Sater, the guy from Bayrock who is now being drawn into this, tell us a little bit about him, David K. Johnston.
Well, we've written a great deal about Felix and the Russians at D.C. Report and other forums. I've written about them. Felix Sater is the Russian-born son of a man who is the reputed head of the Russian mob in New York. He is a convicted violent felon. He ran a $40 million stock swindle and then got a get-out-of-jail-free card by persuading the federal government that he could intercept shoulder-fired missiles on their way to terrorists. He was also a guy who had an office in Trump Tower, traveled widely with Donald on his airplane, even though Donald says I wouldn't know what he looked like. There are many photographs of them together. And what that means is that Donald Trump is 1 degree of separation from Middle East terrorist arms traffickers. It means that Felix Sater is a connection to money in a variety of places, including what happened in Iceland, which was really a Russian oligarch operation to loot wealth in the West. One step away, Donald Trump. So we really need to know a lot more about Felix Sater's connections here. And we're in court right now, along with Forbes magazine and the BBC and others, and we wish more news organizations would join us in trying to force disclosure of a whole variety of court records that the federal government has sealed about Felix Sater, both in federal court and New York State court.
And I just want to add one really quickly, that Felix has a business card, a Donald Trump business card. So isn't it interesting that, again, Donald Trump doesn't know who these people are, but somehow he ended up with a business card.
Yeah, and that photo.
The big question.
Yep, go ahead, David.
The big question for Trump here is whether he knew, that Sater was a fraudulent felon when he was doing business with him. If so, that could create tremendous legal liability. And we had a piece, Mother Jones had explained that this week too. A lot of people focusing on this issue.
Yeah,
of course he didn't know.
Yeah,
there's no way.
And we're going to do a lot more Felix Sater on this show. Just let you guys know, we wanted to give you guys that little tease, since teasing is the theme of the day. We're going to definitely do more on this, and these three folks will be back to do more of that with us on another show. Tamara Holder and David Corn. David K. Johnson is going to be back a little bit later in the hour. And coming up in our next hour, a Republican congressman is here to tell us about Trump Care, and the He-Man Woman Haters Club is back. More AM Joy after the break.